The lungs.
Which is like an acronym, like L period, U period, N period. And then people are like, what's it stand for? And you're like, you know what I mean? For some people in the band, it meant a lot of things. For some, you know what I mean? It was funny. It was, actually it wasn't funny. I mean, it was serious and it was a good band, but like, I mean, I love hip hop. So, and it just sort of like morphed into there. And again, and you were doing a thing that like wasn't sort of happening. You know what I mean? You were like, and so that was sort of exciting. You know what I mean? And it was, and our thing wasn't, it wasn't like corny, like Corn or, so, I mean, the dudes were still sort of more like hardcore kids trying to do this thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But at the same time, when I was in South Florida, I did a hardcore band called Tension.
Mm.
Just because I was so distraught from doing this like new metal hip hop thing, I was like, oh my God, that I had to actually get back into like a hardcore band to be like, okay, I'm okay. I know what's happening. Like, I'm not delusional. I'm okay. I haven't drank the punch completely.
And then you needed to really like rectify things by enjoying the ska bands. Yeah.
Really come back, man. Yeah, like literally one drop it. So yeah. But yeah, Baker, man. I mean, and then I just immediately I got into Skinnerbox and I started doing Skinnerbox, and then from Skinnerbox, man, it was just people. And then I mean, like then I started learning from like you learn from like Luis from the Slackers, Eddie Ocampo was like for me, Scott Abels from Hepcat. There's just dudes like that. I mean, that you see, and you heard, and I was like that, and you're like, whoa, what is that? I was like never a jazz kid, but I've always loved ska and reggae, but that's that stylistic, drumming wise, stylistically, it was always like, how do you do that? What is that? I never did like a deep dive into it, but Baker afforded me that, so.
What was your approach to it? And can you recall some lessons or tricks that were given to you by some of the people in the scene at that time in terms of how to approach it as a drummer?
I mean, there's a great one, like when you I remember like Eddie Ocampo, like he asked like Nib something once. He's like Lloyd Nib, like, how do you do, blah, blah, blah. And Lloyd Nib went, you got to fix it for yourself, man. And Eddie was like, what do you fix it for myself? And so that's what those dudes would say to you. Like Staples would tell you something like, you got to stay one up on yourself, man. And you're like, stay one up on myself. What? And you're like, what is it? These things that you're like, I'm still to this day. I mean, Eddie and I'll talk and I'll be like, have you fixed it? He's like, I have not fixed it for myself yet. I don't. I don't know. Maybe someday I'll fix it for myself, Just that, man. Just being able to watch masters like that. I mean, I feel so fortunate to have watched, Brevet and Nib do their thing. You know what I mean? Like see the specials. It's back then it was just Bust a Blood Vessel, Fatty. I mean, like him, like just doing his like seeing bands like that, like when they were like. Still, I mean, and it was, you're talking like 97, 98. So like that 97, man, that third wave was riding strong to the beach. Adam, yeah, you totally know, man. 97 was glorious, man. Everybody had longboards. We were like, fuck yeah, this is working out. And no matter where you went, like it was just like, auditoriums full of kids that were like, I love this. This is great. And you're like, it was a magical time. It really was.
We'll be right back after this.
Playing with Jeff Baker, you did Skinnerbox. You did Stubborn All Stars a little bit too, right?
I got to do all the shit. Like at one point when I was doing Skinnerbox, and then we went on, there was a ska mob tour, and then I got to do. So then I would do percussion for the Slackers and Stubborn All Stars, and then it started the 9:30 Club. There was we had a Christmas show like December 27th, and Luis and Eddie Ocampo were like, I'm going away for Christmas. I'm not going to be there. So then I had to do all 3 bands, which was cool because then I was like, and I'll tell you what, the Slackers, if you ask them now, they'll be like, McDermott was great. That's the fastest we've ever played those songs. And so I hold that record as probably like the fastest. We came in just under, like 26 minutes or something, for a 45-minute show. But it was great to like, I mean, that like you're just thrown into the deep end of the pool. You know what I mean? And then, and talk about like, there's that, like, you talk about expectation though, like with Joan Jett and some of the songs, like same thing, man, with like Eddie Ocampo and Stubborn. You know what I mean? Like they want to hear Back with the New Batch. They want to hear it, and they want that. They don't want your interpretation of it. They want to hear it like it is on the record.
Mm-hmm.
And that was tough because Eddie Ocampo is like such a fucking master of that shit. That like that is some straight up and I definitely I hacked that. I hacked my way through that. I definitely feel like I'm a much more proficient ska and reggae drummer now. But yeah, man, it was it was okay, but yeah.
So Jeff has Version City, or Version City was a thing, pretty prominent at the time.
Mm-hmm. That place was full of rats, man. It was in a shitty, pissy smelling basement. It was full of rats. I'm sorry.
Oh no, please. Tell us all about the rats.
I apologize.
Not only was it a studio, but it was a place where people came and went. And, sometimes it would just be collections of people would record songs. And there was a compilation of sorts that was released where I know you were on it.
Yep.
Can you talk a little bit about the Version City recordings and like some of the stuff you landed on and what it was like to kind of be part of that?
I mean, like being in ska and reggae, there's a lot of like it's called Version City because there's a lot of like versions of things. You know what I mean? So there's stuff that you would like on that thing where people like different, sections of people, you would just find yourself there or like in the city or find yourself like at whatever time, like, and you'd be like, oh, Agent J's there or Vic Rice is there and like some blah, blah, blah. And then like somebody would like have an idea. And since you're in a recording studio, it's like, just do it. I only got to do that at like a very small, because I lived in Philadelphia. So I was in and out a lot. But the couple times, man, it's kind of magical. You know what I mean? Very, very organic in that way. You know what I mean? And even more so being a fan of that stuff of like coming up and being like, oh God, what happened last night? And it was just like crazy amalgamation of people that have gotten together at like 2 a.m. after like a drunken bar night. And you're like, and yet it's like so masterful what they've done, So like that, just always a creative space. You never knew who you're going to see when you came there. Super rad. Again, it was in this dingiest, like shitty. I mean, it was like one of those, like, the metal gates open up and you got to go down underneath the business kind of thing. Like, and you were on the same side of the street down probably maybe 4, 5, 6 doors from the Hells Angels clubhouse. So you were really safe all the time. But you knew not to. I knew those dudes from being in Murphy's Law. So luckily, I kind of had a little bit of like, because Jimmy's all friends with, so I had a lot of that. And but you knew not to like park certain places. You know what I mean? Like on that block, you're like, oh wow, you didn't just roll up and go, cool, there's parking spots. No. Like you knew that, like, but so you knew it was a safe block. You totally knew it was a safe block. I'm sorry, I don't know how they dealt with all the ska kids coming around all the time, like a bunch of kids in like, two-tone, 3-piece suits, coming down the street. But it was cool, man. Super cool. Just, again, it's just really, everything was always open and just everything was always musical, no matter where you were, man. Like, you could be at like at a college show in Connecticut, but like sound check would turn into this like musical extravaganza, I remember seeing like in like, God, where was it? Maybe South Carolina. And Ruggiero like was just like sitting at the drums and like doing this thing. And I don't know if you've ever heard like the coffee making Vic, But he just started playing this thing. He's the Vic. He's the Vic. He's the coffee making Vic. And you're just like, just shit like that. It was just all